at any given moment. And of course, the big news of the weekend, UFC 91 is almost here. Finally, Couture and Lesnar to settle it all. This past Wednesday, though, marked a milestone for the UFC, the 15th anniversary of UFC 1. Where were you 15 years ago? Ron Kruk recently took a look at everything and how it all began on November 12th, 1993. This is Ron's Corner.
Thanks, guys. The UFC was born right here, November 12th, 1993, in Denver, Colorado. There were no judges, no weight classes, and no rules. 15 years later, McNichols Arena has been torn down and replaced by the new Mile High Stadium. But the foundation created by UFC 1 still impacts the sport today. Fighters and deal makers talk about the beginning in Kruk's Corner.
Well, UFC 1 really was kind of the epitome of the tough man contest.
It's kind of like the first Super Bowl. People didn't really know what they were getting into.
Everybody looked at us and said, "You're going to do what?" We're not really sure that you could do that.
No rules, no time limit. The only way you can get out of there is being carried out of there or tapping out 3 times, and that's it.
It was the start of people starting to understand what this different type of fighting was.
We wanted to set up a tournament that would allow all of the styles, from boxing to sumo, to compete on an equal footing.
What about judo? What about jiu-jitsu? What about boxing? What about... I said, fine, let them all fight.
In my mind, I'm thinking WWF. You know, it's entertainment, something's going to happen, they're going to put a spin on it. You know, there's no way they're going to allow guys to go in there and fight to the death.
Hold on, you're not allowed to get in a fight on the streets, and you're putting this on national TV? Are you crazy?
Even Colorado at the time just did not have a commission whatsoever. I don't think they even had a boxing commission at that time. So it was really a situation where there was no law against it.
So I think the hardest job I had was recruiting fighters and getting people to accept these rules.
And Rorion Gracie, once we found him, we had the key to all of this because he was able to tell us how to do it, what the rules should be, and how it should all work.
There were basically 3 rules in a no-rules fight. Well, there was no biting, no eye gouging, no fish hooking. By promoting it that way, it was a double-edged sword. Because later on, the critics that we developed, including Senator McCain from Arizona, that's what they grabbed onto, was that it was no rules. These 2 contractors in LA were the people who finally built the Octagon, but there was 6 or 7 of us that had to collaborate on it.
I just remember going in before, maybe a couple hours before, and just kind of looking at the Octagon and saying, man, what is this?
And at one time, I even came up with the idea of a moat, and that we would fill the moat with alligators. At one time, we were thinking about a copper circle that would surround a canvas, and the copper circle would be electrified. And I remember that it all seemed to come together in one magic moment in that first bout when Gerard Gordeau took the first charge of the sumo wrestler, Taylor Tooley. It was almost like a bull approaching and attacking a matador, and the matador pulling aside at the last minute, and then he struck.
Gerard Gordeau spins around, throws a kick, hits him right in the face, and the teeth go flying in the front row. You actually see the teeth go flying in the front row, and the crowd went silent.
I remember watching the tooth as it arced over, and my wife was sitting right next to me, and she said, "Oh my God," and she laughed.
I literally saw the guy's orbital bone cave, and then his eye kind of moved to the side, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is the real deal.
The people in the locker room, they were either going, oh my God, what did I get myself into? And some of the guys were actually running out of the building trying to get away. They did not believe this was really happening. That set the tone.
Royce Gracie, who was, who defined Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, introduced that to the world that night. And he fought a guy, a boxer named Art Jimerson. And
he wanted Gracie Jiu-Jitsu to go against boxing to show people that, ground fighting is a very formidable form of fighting.
That was a hard night. I made it look easy, but it was hard. It was tough.
Gordeau moved on to the finals, and so the most anticipated fight of the night was Gracie against Shamrock.
I didn't take him serious because he was wearing a gi, and that was a mistake. He wraps the other side of his gi on his lapel around my neck and starts to choke me with the gi. So as I roll out of it, the thing goes really tight, and then I tapped.
I know you tap, you know you tap, but you want to continue? We're going to continue. I look at the ref and said, let it go. We're going to continue. Go, I told him. And he's like, no, you're right, I quit. He knew a second time I wasn't going to let it go.
The referee looked at me, and I looked at the ref, and I was like, there's no way I can get out of this. I go, okay, man, I tapped.
Last two men standing, Royce Gracie against Gerard Gordeau, the finals of UFC 1.
He beat my ear. As soon as I took him down, mouth on him, he tried to get a bite of my ear. I pull it off. I look at him and I whisper in his ear, you cheating. He just looked at me, give me that look like, I was like, okay, now I'm going to stop when I want to. So that's when I got the choke. He tapped and didn't let it go.
Royce emerged triumphant. It was an incredible night, and I think that was one of the most stunning things, that the smallest man wearing a gi, a traditionalist, wins that event.
We made up a new sport. Great athletes, great people, and then, of course, great controversy.
Yes, I'm proud. I was happy, but that's what I trained for. So there's no surprise.
Guys, attendance for UFC 1 was 2,800 people. This weekend in Vegas for UFC 91, over 15,000 are expected. MMA has come a long way in 15 years. Back to you.
Great history lesson. Thanks very much, Ron. And those were the wild, woolly days. You know, I want to say this, because everybody has always brought up the John McCain statement. Probably, if you go back 15 years ago and you're hearing some of those stories, human cockfighting might have been a way to describe it for the majority of people.
For the majority of people, then again, those animals don't sign up for this. You know, we got two guys who sign up for this. And I got to tell you this also. I was in September 93. I was fighting the first fight in Pancras in Japan. And Ken Shamrock was there. And he was explaining to me the rules. And I look at him and I say, and he was all excited that he was going to do that. I said, man, there's no rules. He says, no rules. I said, that's TV. Yeah, the referee's not going to step in. No. I said, man, that's going to be dangerous because you got these guys who are on TV. And once they knock you out, they just keep going and keep hitting. You know, you have some of those guys in there. I said, it's going to be dangerous. But he was all psyched, man. He said, no, I want to do it.
Yeah, I remember those
and
days.
if you notice, too, by the way, I mean, if you notice, too, from John McCain to any other politician, you haven't heard any disparaging things said about mixed martial arts in several years.
Yeah, that's why I want to hear what McCain says now.
And anybody, as it's grown. But you got to admit, guys, had you all been old enough at that time, and Halleck, what were you said? You were 8?
It was
so,
crazy.
Paul, you were what, like
12, 13, 15?
Kane, you were probably 8 or 9, something like that?
I remember it was all black tapes, though. Remember the black tapes used to float around. Watch these fights, and there's all these black VHS tapes, and you couldn't watch it on TV. I remember that time.
I watched it in Holland for the first time. They had an illegal tape in the martial arts store, and I go, man, when Gordeau, he's from Holland, when he kicked that sumo, what they were talking about, man, the teeth went flying. I said, this is going to be dangerous. Somebody's going to die.
Yeah, somebody, I mean, I got to admit, if you guys had been old enough then, would you have taken a step back and go, what, no rules?
Oh, totally.
No
I think
rules?
so.
We just
so.
Imagine that kick would have been with his shin bone.
Oh.
You see what I mean?
I'd say the best thing that came out of that, too, is thank goodness they did not put the moat with the alligators around there.
Oh, I'm talking about
that would have just been a circus.
And swimming in acid water. Very strong one.
For me, it was something that was so normal, you know, and you were like, wow, you wouldn't stop and say, oh, well, there's no rules. For me, like, there was guys coming to our house challenging our family before the UFC even started, where, you know, my dad, my uncles, everybody would, you know, people were getting choked out in my garage, and we're sitting there, and I'm 8 years old eating popcorn watching this, you know?
Wow.
And by the time it happened, I was just like, Dad, sign me up. You know, when are we going to have one of these for kids? And he was just like, no, wait, you know, your time will come. And I'm just like, come on, man, let's do it, you know. But for me, you know, it was always something that was there from the beginning, and it almost seems normal, you know. But it's interesting to see you guys from the outside and your input and what you guys saw, you know, from the, your angle is it's pretty trippy.
Yeah, it's just great to see how the sport has grown. And probably another lesson learned, how much money they did not make back then. I mean, your family wasn't getting rich fighting at that time.
$60,000.
You know?
But then again, they were the promoters too, right? So
no,
maybe that's
honestly,
something in the back end.
Okay, but
we can't go into that, but
good point.
Right? Yeah.
All right.
Good.